Our guest today is Pradeep Thangappan. He is the director, co-founder of Aerostrovilos Energy Private Limited. Pradeep is dyslexic. We are going to actually chart his journey. More than charting his journey, he is going to share how he grappled with dyslexia and how not more than cope with it, but how dyslexia actually has made him into a success. It's the spin on how dyslexia actually makes one successful. Though there is initial struggle, I think if you address the struggles, the success is guaranteed. Pradeep, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Mridula, thank you very much for your time and inviting me.
You have a BE in mechanical engineering from Anna University, right?
Yeah, I have a BE mechanical engineering. I did it in actually M&M Jain Engineering College,
Okay.
part of Anna University.
Right. Now, before you got to engineering, you obviously went to school. So, what was your childhood like?
I think there is um, a pivotal point, I would say, before knowing that kind of I was dyslexic, and after knowing it is. So, in terms of to me, it didn't really make much of a difference other than perceived sense. But definitely, yes. Before knowing it, there was just too much pressure, I would per se. And once I think there was a small article in Hindu. This was way back when I was, I think, in my 8th standard or something like that.
So that is
There was,
what is in if it's eighth standard. How about say 20 years ago? What was that?
yeah, it was close to about 20 years ago. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
So there was a small article describing what dyslexia is. It's a very small article in Hindu, and so basically, I think my father read it, and
Okay.
it was literally describing me. Like I did have problem with math. I did have problem in English.
Huh.
The reversing of B and D characters, typical left and right confusion and left and right and all that aspect of it. So kind of he read it and then it kind of said, okay, fine, maybe he should get me kind of tested or basically.
So, what class were you in at that time?
I think it would be around 7th, 8th. I don't exactly remember.
Okay, so middle school. It was in
middle school.
Okay.
Yes.
That's quite old, right, for middle school. And
Yeah,
I mean, at that time, nobody knew that was a fact.
that was true. That was true. There was hardly any awareness, and literally MDA was 2 rooms there back then. So I think you have the stenographer sitting, and then there was 1 room for the counseling. That's about it in T Nagar. Yeah, I think still MDA has been in T Nagar, but it was a very small building, and then on the first floor. So, so yes, it was quite a long time back. But I think in terms of what it at least got to me was in terms of it's okay. I think that was the realization, at least for me, to say it's okay to be not good at one particular thing, and
At
I
least
don't want.
it has your condition has your struggle had a name.
Yes, the struggle had a name. Even though we talk about definition and other things, it was nice to know that there is something around.
I like that. It was nice to know. Because many people struggle with branding. No, I don't agree with branding, but I think we should know if a child has dyslexia, because then you can address what the difficulties of the child and work around it, right?
Yes. So this kind of reminds me of a small analogy. It's that kind of when I in my few points I started picking up photography, and there is something called the 1/3 rule in photography. Is that you divide the frame of a 35 film, that is generally common thing, in three, and then you keep it in the right 1/3 or the left 1/3, your subject, and you don't shift that. This is actually a definition on photography.
Okay.
But once you understand that, you don't need to follow it. That's art. So now you change photography into art. So kind of that was the revelation I had. It's nice to know, it's get to good point. You have certain things, you have classifications and other things, but finally, end of the day, you choose what to do with it. So that
I
was my
like that.
take.
You choose what to do with it. So, what did you choose to do with it?
I think I started working on my strengths than bothering about my weaknesses
Right.
and inability. So dyslexia did bring a lot of strengths to me and also weakness.
I
And
like this. Now, I want you to see this is something that I want. See, most people, what happens when they say dyslexia and they call it a disability, right? So, most of them focus on the difficulty. You, and nobody talks about the strength of the dyslexic, which comes with a corresponding weakness.
yep,
So,
that is true.
please shed light on it.
So in terms of I can kind of in terms of the obvious things, let's say what in terms of the disability, so called, what it says is yes, I did have problem in reading. I think till day I do have problem in reading. I don't think I can sit down and then in terms of read a book today. I've never read a novel or a book till date. To me, it is difficult for me, and I do make spelling mistakes even today. But in terms of what I was able to do is basically I kind of understood how things work on a very I wouldn't say mathematical equation level, but in a process level, I could kind of in my mind decipher how an engineering component would work. In some sense, in terms of I did my I think schooling in I think I was the first batch of Ananya.
Okay.
I wrote my 10th in private. And I did take I kind of forced in spite of basically MDA's kind of suggestion to move towards commerce. I did say no, I want science, and kind of I did gravitate to engineering. So at least that was my choice. But getting to engineering after that, it was a great disappointment. I whatever I imagined didn't really happen. But I started exploring myself in terms of I started figuring out a lot of how things work, how each aspect of it. I tried my hand in multiple things. I actually started my career in photography.
Okay.
And then I worked actually for a couple of while in Vidyasagar and was developing assistive aids like augmentative and alternative communication aids for about 3-4 years.
Fantastic.
And that's when I got connected to a professor who were working in a very similar line in IIT Madras. And went about kind of incorporating a fiber laser company along with him, which made medical lasers, and exited the company, and then went on. Aerostravelos is a recent one. I'll talk about it a little later.
Okay.
But the whole aspect of it is that my strengths were to figuring out niche problem where people were not able to find a solution in the conventional way. That was fairly my strength, even though it's a slightly vague aspect of it. But
that is a very strong dyslexic strength. You're able to look at a problem and give it solutions in a way that nobody else can.
Yes. That is, yes, I think in some sense that's bang on. And one of the aspects also I think I picked up is, yes, I did in some sense had an affinity with academics in way, I wanted to be kind of engineering. I wanted to get into research and other things, but kind of the scores or the typical areas where you would get into a PhD or a master's, the scores didn't matter, which I was not able to fairly secure. But kind of that opened avenues that it's not the only aspect of it.
Correct.
And if you just filter the social badging into after getting into a college or a premium institute and rather than getting it, if you actually look at the true sense, it's actually research development and then delivering a tangible item. That is what research is all about, which kind of I got to in a different way in terms of. Right now it's called startups, entrepreneurship, and other things. There's a lot of, again, badging over here. But in some sense, in true sense, to me, it is how I kind of are able to work with a problem and create tangible or not, at least to me, it's a huge success. Every day when we achieve kind of different milestones, the tangibility that at least I get and the satisfaction I get is enormous, which kind of it cannot be defined in words or basically in whatever.
So what you essentially do is you're saying that instead of marks being a problem, so you didn't take the conventional route towards your field, right? So instead of getting marks and then getting into a master's or whatever, what you did was you took a entrepreneurial route.
Yes.
Right? So what you're saying is you actually did with your hands. Yours is like more a doing kind of thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there is no one route. You have to figure out your own way and your path and do it.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I don't think the conventional is the only route that generally people are too fixated on. There are actually multiple things or multiple ways you can take, and then the aspect of is you might find a path less taken, and then just create a new method to achieve it. So
there is no one solution to a problem. There are different ways to solve it, and dyslexic are good with doing it different and faster. Do you agree?
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And also, I also want to talk to you about your dyslexic way of thinking. How do you think?
Little, I'm not sure if how I'll put it in words, but in terms of there is no matter what, there is a why. In my first thought process, in terms, I think I always start with a why.
Right.
No matter I see it, no matter what happens or anything.
So it's a curiosity. The curiosity why.
Yes, the curiosity of why. And is there something else that can basically work in the same situation?
Fantastic.
That is I think all about thing and in terms of, so as I earlier mentioned, I don't read a book. That is something that is there, but why can't I look at other options? So kind of, back then audiobooks weren't a thing.
That time it wasn't a thing. Now you have Audible and all the other things.
You have Audible and other things, tons of things, and there's a thing. But back then, voice synthesis, Microsoft was bringing in voice synthesis. So I was very curious and working at it. That open language, the open community did have some level. I did, in a small period, start working about. There are actually, there is a kind of a product that I worked on, which kind of is taken a different form. So there was a company I did co-found called Enability Foundation, which basically started working on voice synthesis and other things. It took a different turn. Now they have different products and other things. I'm not fully working with them now, but in terms of, I think in some level, I have each of those why has contributed to some level and then has brought in something to an extent. Midway, things have changed. Multiple things have happened. Technology is surpassed. But in terms of, I have worked on a process scale tablet back in 2012 when tablets didn't exist. We were at it for three years, but then kind of the bigger corporate MNCs kind of came out with more sleeker and more efficient models.
Right.
But yes, these are where subsequent and consequence of why and what if, and those aspects of it. But it's just, at the end of the day, it was fun creating it. No, we might have not got too far, but I think it's still a worthy learning that can happen.
What is actually very fascinating for a non-dyslexic person like me is usually persons with dyslexia struggle in school. The school is really, really difficult. But the moment they get out of school, they just blossom. Something happens. What happens? What happens when they get out of school and get into the real world? That is provided, this is a scenario where they're getting, enough support. People are understanding them. They're getting support at school, support at home. So they get into the real world, and the real world scenario completely changes them, and they just blossom. Why?
I think I would get back to that one-third rule analogy I had.
Ah,
Is I think it is asking us to follow in line is the biggest problem. I would say the minute I think for a dyslexic, open school is the best.
mm,
I know people are so concerned about losing a year and going, but they're not realizing in some sense not to be taken as advice, please. But
yeah,
sometimes they do realize that giving that space to grow is much more valuable to anyone rather than counting years and saying that that kid has to complete the school. He should have completed eighth by this age
right.
and should have moved on. I think rather than this allowing the space to kind of grow and nurture yourself,
Huh.
I think is the one key, at least to me, because very frankly, after second year, I hardly attended college.
Okay.
I know this is not good advice. Please don't take this as a thing. Not at all bad idea. Um, so I did not. So one of the things about college is I actually took 7 years to complete my BE.
Huh.
Um, but what I had was also that I don't give up on what I started, no
See,
matter
that
how
is a
dreadful
trait
it is.
with most dyslexic people. With dyslexia, they're so driven, they don't give up. My daughter's the same thing. She's completely driven.
So the thing about it is the first 2 years I kind of was grinding
Mm.
and trying to complete it, and then after that I think I felt this has no point. So
Correct.
kind of I kind of focused on what I wanted to do in the 2 years. There was a lot of struggles and other things,
Mm.
but I refused to kind of in terms of give it. I started kind of exploring myself,
Mm.
and very frankly, after the college, no, now nobody's asking me, nobody's behind me. Let me finish it, and I want to do what is next to me. So
Huh.
literally after 4 years, I completed all the papers in another 1.5 years,
Huh.
and then I did finish my graduation because I didn't want to kind of start that and leave it in
Correct.
midway.
Correct.
Yeah, by the time I also kind of was managing my family business,
Mm.
and I kind of parallelly along with that, I wanted to finish my engineering. Not I didn't care any less for the degree certificate, but
Mm.
I just wanted to finish
Yes,
and then
you
say that
started it.
that's closed, that's
Right.
closed,
Right.
and move on.
Right. And then what happened after you got your engineering? You finished your engineering. Then what did you do?
So it was all exploration. I did multiple things. Like I said, I started I was working with a renowned photographer in Adayar.
Mm.
He was a professional automobile photographer.
Mm.
I was working with him not in terms of being an apprentice,
Mm.
and kind of then I was not so sure that this is meant for me,
Mm.
and kind of started working on going back to engineering. I wanted something more engineering, more challenging,
Mm.
and fairly felt that is where I kind of belong.
Mm.
And I was exploring, so I was working with a lot of AAC projects.
Mm.
Um, then knowing me that me and the professor were talking quite a bit, and there was a small period also I was managing my family business, which was at the boiler manufacturing. So that was
So you were
there.
manufacturing boilers.
Yes, it's
Okay.
manufacturing boilers.
Huh.
So I had to take it up just after my graduation,
Hmm.
in some sense, and it was kind of basically my father passed away, and then there
Okay.
was no one else to kind of move into that position. So I kind of have to fit myself into that.
So
There
how
were
did you
large
cope?
shoes to occupy.
How
Uh,
did you cope? I mean, that's a
it was
huge thing.
Yeah, it was massive. It was very, very difficult. One of the most difficult initial start, and I would also say the most valuable lessons I've learned in my life. I think that 2 to 3 years working hard, I think figuring out things, I think still serves me on my thing, and fairly. I think also I did my best work, I would say, in those first initial couple of years, I would say, because, yeah, in spite of there was a lot of work, it was a lot of pressure, then there were real values, asserts, and other things. I had total freedom.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I did the best work. I did a ton of mistakes, hell a lot of stupid things. All that is there, but just going through that and knowing that there's no safety net, I would say was the best period and the best learning I've ever had in my life.
So
and then it allowed me to grow.
Taking a risk really put, working on the edge brought out the best in you?
I would say yes. I think that trait still carries on. I don't care about finance. Most of people talk about financial safety, job security, and other things. I don't care about anything. It's my pure love for basically building something, achieving things, and in some sense, I would say still now I think I take calculated risks, but knowing what is the downside and knowing positive. But I think that whole thing about doing that is there, and in terms of and executing something without regrets is something that basically those initial period taught me.
So taking a calculative risk is also a typical dyslexic trait. So does that continue even now?
I think very much. I weigh in, weigh out all the aspects of it, but in terms of the aspect is, I know I will achieve here when it is the upscale. Like I can achieve these heights, and this is my downside. Once I know it, I think the fear goes out completely, and then you just do it.
So it comes instinctively to you. It comes naturally to you.
I think once you get the fear out, it's more like just breathing. So you won't say it's breathing is instinct,
right?
But it's there. it's there.
Right. It becomes like an involuntary reaction.
Yes.
It's part of you. So now, where are you now?
So I would still say I'm part of it in terms of. So I should talk about Aros Traveler's Energy. So basically, Aros Traveler's Energy, I think I would say one down my best, or basically the most daring project I have entered into. One down because I have something cooking in my mind, which kind of is something for the future. But in terms of most of the people have affinity towards rockets and other things, but I've always had affinity to something called the gas turbine engine. Your gas turbine engine is nothing but your aircraft engine, which basically drives the plane.
Right.
To me, I think, at least to me, few will agree, few may not agree, but to me, I think that's one of the most complex engineering that has been ever built by mankind. And there are a handful of countries who have the technology. And with Aros Travelers, I am attempting to basically build and deliver a small gas turbine engine that can basically power the future mobility.
Right.
That is in sense, in terms of, when I say mobility, I take both energy and movement, both in hand to hand. I think it is one at the same, whereas you may say energy is power, electricity, and the same happens in an automobile, where it's still a power plant inside it.
Right. So, and also, if you notice, you have been doing varied things. You haven't just stuck to one thing, right?
Yes, in terms of that has been one aspect of it. I think there has been this in some sense there has been multiple interests that I've had. And in some sense, I've still continued to it. I do hold director positions in I think 3 more companies, which does completely different aspect of it. So there is an e-mobility company called Yali Mobility that works with a 3-wheeler electric scooter for person with motor disability. And there is ISMO Biophotonics, which kind of works on microfluidics based a new concept called organ on a chip. So basically what you do is in a small chip, you grow a couple of hundreds of cell of a particular organ, and then doing animal trials, you kind of use that chip on replacing trials.
Okay, that's very interesting.
So this is from the Unilumin Photonics, and both of them used to be my employees. Both of them who are heading those companies used to be working under me as my employees, and now they've started their own companies, and I'm kind of supporting them to move forward.
So what do you do? I mean, how is it? See, you are dyslexic. You're open about it, and so in your company, are you very open to taking in people with dyslexia?
In terms of at least people who approach and work and other things I've not come to an instant, very frankly speaking. I've not come to an instant saying that, okay, I'm dyslexic. But what I'm at least open about it, I fairly don't care where you come from, what your degrees, what your background is. But if you have basically a unique talent, I'm willing to work with you.
Right.
And willing to help you nurture it, and then let's get to see how we can push it to the max. I'm willing to do it. So my team is a little wide because we do a lot of core research. I do have a lot of PhDs that I work with. In terms of it, there are a mix of people from IIT Madras. There's some other colleges. There's a mix of people I have. It's a very small core concentrated team that I have. But in terms of, at least I would not negate or basically look at, even in hiring today, I kind of spend literally half a day to one day before I hire. I literally spend the time in and out sitting with the candidate before kind of hiring them and other things. So that's something like that. But I've literally not got across anyone who said, I'm dyslexic. Can we do this? So
because that is also, it's hidden, right? Most people, either they don't know or they are not going to reveal it.
Yes.
So at least, what we are trying to do is bring the conversation, talk more, bring it to the table, try to normalize dyslexia, because definitely, if you're going to say about, so research shows that 40% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. And that's how they are successful. And I read on LinkedIn an article that said 26% of CEOs are dyslexic and they don't wish to reveal that they are. Because I'm sure they struggle. It has whatever, various other reasons. But we must, I think we should embrace this and be more and more open about it. That's why. So what would you tell? This is one of my favorite questions. What is it that you would wish to tell first anyone who's dyslexic, who's a student, and who's listening to this?
I think the first is there. I think we should embrace it. I think as much as it's been your difficulty, I feel dyslexia has been my strength in all equal level of how much it is. I've gone through struggles and other things. I think equal, and I think talking about it kind of puts sense to rote curriculum, saying that it has to go out. Today NCLT is talking about, we need to have activity-based learning, rote has to go out and all that. But I think we've been saying that for a very long time.
Right. So, in fact, if you teach people in a way that a dyslexic person learns, it works for everybody.
Yeah. So I think embracing that, telling people, you can't. See, education was formed for industrialization. It kind of, the schools, uniform, be in line, all for industrialization. Today, the era is different. I think people have to realize it, and then if we are a voice to kind of say, boss, let's think about it. It's no more required to do it this way. I think we've been doing it for a long time, so I think they should learn from us. So, yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. And what would you tell parents?
In terms of, I think yes, it is in terms, in some sense, that we should allow. Okay, let me rephrase it. I think in this current day and age, learning is one aspect of it. Scores, marks are all one aspect of life, and people have to kind of focus on skilling and then knowledge and exploring. And I think parents have to kind of let them um, learn differently. That is one aspect of it. But really find out what they are, our strengths are and weaknesses are, and kind of, you know, allow them to kind of focus more on their strength area. I think that is what I would say. I know education is important in terms of end of the day to get by. You need some communication, you need some education, you need some in some level of basically decent language,
Right.
may it be written and other things. All that is fine, but I think beyond that there is this whole world and there is a life you will have to live,
Correct.
and your happiness quotient has to be more important than the mark quotient that you get. So that's what I would like to say. Let's focus on the happiness quotient.
Absolutely. And what is it you would tell people in the workplace, whether they are, their bosses or their colleagues or their team leads in the corporate world, in or any world, in the workspace scenario? How would you, what would you tell the bosses?
Unfortunately, this might not be so. I'm not sure how it is, but I've never worked under someone. Very frankly speaking, from start of my career, so I really cannot connect to an employee starting over. I've been lucky. I would say I've never worked under anyone. I have always from day one actually I've been my own boss. Um,
But
so
what would you do? Say, for example, what would you make your space open to somebody? Say, if they are dyslexic, what would you do?
I would, if they struggle,
Huh.
definitely I would sit down with them and teach us all the tricks, tools, and whatever Microsoft and open softwares that you can use to get around all your issues. That would be the first thing I would do.
So you use tech.
Yeah, I use a ton
Yes.
of tech.
Yeah. I swear by it.
Yes, I think the day I got out of college, I've got on a laptop, and then life's been great ever since. Like, I do have a pen and paper. I do make notes and all that. But end of the day, tech has helped me a lot. And then you figure out. And I think second thing I would teach them is confidence. It's okay. You make a mistake, you own up the mistake, but you don't kind of mull over it.
Right.
I think a lot of people do that. They might accept it, but still keep on mulling over it. Yeah, you accept, you just move on. So I think that is the biggest areas where I think people lack. This is, but just to note, this is not just person with dyslexia. It is everyone.
Everybody.
Everybody. They just mull over their mistakes.
Right.
I think you should just you just learn from it and then say, okay, fine, I should not do this next time, and then move on, and then go to your next next maybe mistake.
How important is technology? See, now there's technology everywhere, right? So if a child, I'm talking about a school-going child, is struggling with acquiring knowledge, see, how you acquire knowledge is okay as long as you acquire it, right? So
Yeah.
how important is for parents to embrace technology so that learning and acquiring knowledge becomes easy for the child?
So I'm not someone on the technology background, but I just as my opinion, unfortunately there is a very very thin line between using a technology, are you acquiring knowledge or just getting dopamine hits. So there is a very very thin line.
Right.
But I think in terms of anything for that, maybe it's also there in the books. It's just people didn't realize it so obviously, wherein it's there in the technology. There is also a lot of books that are allowed, which is kind of giving you knowledge. Something is just random thing, random books. Sometimes even newspapers were accused of giving random information rather than news, proper newses. So in terms of it, it did always have existed, and then what we have did is we did structure it in such a way that the knowledge, and I think the structure is in some sense important on the initial time. So structuring understanding the technology, structuring it for knowledge gain to a period where the person or the child can take its own decision and then understand what is knowledge and what is not. Right. Until then, I think there has to be guidance.
Definitely.
And beyond
monitored.
That,
yes.
Yes, monitored. Beyond that, I think then the growth stands, because there is an inflection point when the child starts to gain knowledge more than the parents, I think. And at that point, when they don't understand, they have to make some effort to understand it, but also try to kind of take help, community and other things, and allow that knowledge to thing. So, because why I'm saying is, gaming was considered one negative aspect of it, but I know a lot of co-workers who've made a huge fortune or made a livelihood on creating games and then consulting for companies to basically creating games and then thing and it's a lot. You'll have to be really good at mathematics to actually create good games. You'll have to be really good at inferring things to actually create games. Those are strengths that you can put into use, and that is one side of it. Yes, playing mind-numbing games is the downside, but if you're going to nurture them to create or basically work on that, I think you should just let them go and not box it, saying that okay, gaming as a whole or music as a whole, boxing it and then saying that no, you should not go that way is I think you'll have to kind of weigh in the options, given the give the pros and cons, and saying this is where this is where it is, and leave it up to them, and then everyone will figure it out. So
right. It's been wonderful chatting with you, Pradeep. Thank you so much for taking the time off and doing this for us.
Yeah, my pleasure. So it's been great chatting with you, Mridula.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.